Hello everyone, Kevin with Kevin's Aquariums. Gonna do a review on the Aquatop CF500 canister filter that I bought. I had this running on my quarantine tank now for roughly about 3 months. I like it. It does everything that I need it to do. Might be a little bit of an overkill for a 45-gallon tank. Today I'm going to show you what I have in the filter, along with what I do to clean it and everything. Very easy to get into and clean, and the only thing you gotta watch out for on these is the UV sterilizing bulb. Mine's a little cloudy with looks like some algae in there, but the bulb itself is dry, so that's a good sign. I know some people have had issues with the bulbs breaking, or the lens, so to say, cracking and water actually getting inside the housing with the bulb, which is not a good thing. So we got, I believe there's 4 trays of media in here. I basically just used what came with it. I will be adding something a little extra today, or something different. These bio balls that it came with are sometimes tricky to keep in there. They like to sink down through the hole where the UV sterilizer goes and kind of just go wherever they feel like, whatever tray they feel like. I'm going to pull out all the trays here. And again, this is on my quarantine tank. So I had the activated carbon in there to take out the medications that I was using. Oh, looks like I did add it the last time I cleaned it. So the little extra that I was going to add today was going to be the filter floss. Like I said, it looks like I added it the last time I cleaned it, so I'm going to take all that out, throw that over there. And I'm just going to basically just start rinsing all the media, or all the sponges and everything out. That one looks like it's starting to fall apart. See if I can get it a little bit cleaner. If not, then I'll just take it out and add in a little bit of extra filter floss. Yeah, it looks like edges are starting to fall apart. I don't want any of that in my tank, so just throw all that over there. And again, basically just rinse all these out. Now, if you've seen one of my previous videos, you know that my quarantine system is just a 45-gallon tank. Nothing really special. Like I said, this is a CF500, so it might be a little bit of overkill. But if there ever comes a time where I'm not using the quarantine tank, I can always add this to my 125-gallon as a little bit of extra filtration. For filter floss, I just use the original polyfill. Just make sure that it's 100% polyester. Make sure it's not like I believe they call it like flame retardant or flame resistant. You don't want any of that stuff that they use to make it flame retardant in your tank. So I basically just shove it all in there. And what I like to do is, after I go through all these, I like to just stack them all up and then slide them into the canister itself. Here's another one that's kind of starting to deteriorate, so throw that one back over there as well. So this filter does have quite a bit of flow. Works really well at keeping the tank clear and everything. Like I said, it is overkill for the size tank that it's on, but the fish don't seem to mind how much flow it is, or how much flow is in there. I'm just gonna pack this one full of filter floss too, since I pulled that sponge out. So I'm just gonna drop that in with it. Set that back over here with the other one. Now with these, you do kind of have to be careful. You want to make sure that the trays actually interlock. Otherwise, you could have issues with rattling. I did that the first time I set it up. Here's another one that's eventually I'll just have to go out and buy a couple of sponges for these other trays here. But yeah, you could have an issue with rattling if the trays aren't interlocked together. Like I said, I did that the first time I set it up. Didn't know what was going on or why it was making noise like it was. Did a little bit of research, and it was actually Ben Ochart's channel that when he was talking about his Sun filter, which is kind of the same thing, but when he was talking about that, and he kind of explained the rattling issues if the trays aren't locked, and that was when I figured out what I was doing wrong. Slide this over here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Basically just making sure that all the polyfill is in the tray, and making sure the trays clamp down on top or sit down on top of each other. And I put them in backwards. Alright, and then what I always like to do is I pull everything out of the canister filter and leave the aquarium water in there, and then use the aquarium water that's in the canister to clean it. And then once I'm done cleaning it, I'll take the pump head out, just because I don't want possibility of electrical or anything shorting out inside the pump head if it gets in the wrong spot. And I just dump out all the dirty aquarium water. So as you can see on this filter, they do put a little sticker in the bottom here to let you know where the holes in the tray are supposed to go for the UV light. Oh, that didn't work. I just let them all slide. Normally let them all slide down in there. Didn't quite work this time. So again, just as you're putting them in there, just make sure they're all interlocked together. Kind of give it a little shake there to make sure that it's sitting the way it's supposed to. And set that right there on top. Line up your UV light. And then clamp it back down. Once you got it all clamped back down, we'll bring it back into the tank and finish setting it back up. All right. Give me just a moment. We'll carry this back in there. Trying to get you guys a good camera angle on what I'm doing here. Alright, so they actually make it really easy. You got both your return and your input are all on one connector here. Set that down in there. Flip the lever and it should start filling the tank. You're gonna hear it bubbling through the output. I never really like to fill my canisters back up with regular tap water. I like to refill them with tank water, just to make sure that I'm not getting any contaminants in there that I don't want. Want to make sure I'm not getting any chlorine or chloramine in there killing the beneficial bacteria. And then once it's full, I normally give it a couple pumps here with the prime button. But I let it just fill up naturally on its own until it stops bubbling in the tank. And then normally what I'll do is I'll just turn it on and then hit the prime button a few times to make sure that I get all the water out. As you can see, or as you might be able to hear right now, it is kind of loud. And then it'll take a few more minutes with it running to get all the bubbles or all the air pockets out. What I do to help it sometimes is once it stops doing it on its own, I'll kind of grab a hold of this and give it a couple shakes. Let it sit for a minute. Let it get the rest of the air out again. And then once it stops pushing the air out on its own, I'll give it another little shake. On this filter, I've never actually used the UV light. This is the only filter I have that has one. I guess I've never seen the point in it or really thought that I needed to. So I purchased this filter from one of the local fish stores that's one of the locally owned fish stores that's about a little over an hour away. Bought it on sale for $120. It says it's got a flow rate of 525 gallons per hour. I don't know if it actually flows that much. I'm guessing that's empty without the media in it. But even with the media in it, it's still got pretty good flow. Like I said, if it wasn't for running it on my quarantine tank, I would probably be adding it to my 125 for added filtration. I bought the filter on sale for $130. I know it's basically the same thing as a Sun, and the Suns are a little bit cheaper. The only reason I went with this was because I wanted to get this quarantine tank set up because I had purchased fish that day and I wanted to put them in a quarantine system. However, I didn't have one up and running. What I did when I purchased this was in my sump underneath the 90 gallon, I've got 5 sponges that are sitting in the sump for seeded media that I can just pull out when I need them. And I pulled those out, put those in here on the first day, just to get some, just so that way I had some some cycled media in here. I didn't want to try establishing a new tank with new fish. Not normally a good idea. So what I did was put the cycled media in there, and I also used C-Chem stability. I figured with the seeded media and the stability together, I shouldn't really have any issues. However, I did use my master test kit from API to basically just double check on everything. Tested it every day, didn't have any issues at all. The only issues I had were one of the fish was beating up on the others. One of them ended up not making it. And then shortly after, I bought the red tear, and he's kind of been having his way with the other fish that I put in here. So he is the only one in the 45 gallon now. As he gets bigger, once he reaches a decent enough size, he'll be added to the 125. And this tank will either be taken down for the time being, or I will leave it set up just in case I have a sick fish, or in case I buy new fish. Sometimes it does take a little while to get all the air out. So right after I clean the filter, it does leave the water a little cloudy. The stuff from the hoses will a lot of times flow into the tank. So the tank right now doesn't look the greatest. But within 2 hours it'll all be filtered out, with how small the tank is and how large the flow rate is on this filter. Alright, and that looks like I got all of the air out. Not hearing any more escaping in there. So I'll just kind of show you what the tank looks like after I'm done with the filter change. Again, it's not clean because the filter does really throw some stuff into the tank. Doesn't ever seem to bother the fish at all. And then, as you can see, I will have to add water back to the tank now that I use tank water to fill up the canister. I'd say it's down about an inch below the plastic. Keep in mind this is only a 3 foot by 12 foot, or 3 foot by 1 foot tank as far as dimensions, and then not entirely sure how tall it is. Quick little shot of the red tear here. Still haven't gotten him to try any pellets yet. Still on pretty much a strict bloodworm diet because that's all he'll eat. If you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, enjoy your week, and we will see you next week for another video.